Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Parveen, and I'm involved in journalism since 1991 until to date. Today, first of all, I want to say that we are discussing today the understanding the geopolitical importance of Bay of Bengal. And today, we have a special guest. On my right, former Ambassador Mr. Ashok Sajjanhar, and on my left, he is the chairman in Department of Development Studies of Dhaka University, Mr. Rashed Al Mahmud Titumir. Okay, sir. So, since our subject is to the geopolitical importance of Bay of Bengal, so we are 1.7 billion people in this area, and the economy is 7 trillion economy. And what I have gathered that almost approximately 50% of world traders using this Bay of Bengal. So, how do you see the importance of Bay of Bengal, its peace and its prosperity for among the countries?
Thank you very much for the very kind invitation. Before I respond to your question, let me take this opportunity to thank the organizers of the conference, the Bay of Bengal Conversations, the Center for Global Studies, Dr. Zillur Rahman and his very competent and dedicated team for getting us all together. The theme of the conference is the Indo-Pacific, and of course the whole idea of Indo-Pacific was initially launched in 2017. I'm not going back to when Shinzo Abe had given this concept in the Indian Parliament in 2007. But in the current context, it was revived by Donald Trump on the sidelines of the East Asia Summit in November of 2017. And after that, it has started getting much greater traction also, and much greater recognition. India, of course, when Prime Minister Modi had travelled for the Shangri-La Dialogue in 2018 to Singapore, he had given India's idea of the Indo-Pacific. And I'm very happy to note that even Bangladesh has come up with its own outlook of the Indo-Pacific. So the first point that I want to make here is that as far as the Bay of Bengal is concerned, it is a very integral element of the Indo-Pacific. And so in that sense, when we are talking about the geostrategic significance of Indo-Pacific, I think it stands to reason that there is a great geopolitical relevance of the Bay of Bengal. Now, you have mentioned some figures. We also know that basically, madam, the center of gravity of the global economy is shifting, is moving from transatlantic to the Indo-Pacific. Indo-Pacific was a natural construct that used to exist before the Second World War. It is only as a result of the Cold War that came in after the Second World War that we divided it into the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean. Historically, it has always been together. So in that sense, Bay of Bengal has always enjoyed a huge pride of place, which it is again getting back. So to come to this, I would say that the significance and relevance is geo-economic, because the sea lanes of communication which are traveling from the Pacific through the South China Sea to West Asia and Europe, because much of the energy for these countries, whether it is for India or it is for Japan, China, ASEAN, this all goes through this area. So geo-economically, it is very important for energy, for manufactured goods, for raw materials. This is extremely significant. Then in terms of geostrategic importance of this area, because if you look at it just around the corner, we have some of what are called the choke points, whether it is the Malacca Straits between the Malay Peninsula and Indonesia, whether it is the Sunda Straits, that is between the islands of Java and Sumatra, which come out onto the Bay of Bengal, or it is the Lombok Straits, which fall between the island of Bali and island of Lombok. So there are these choke points which can, if there are problems, if there are difficulties, then of course they can be blocked, and it can have a calamitous impact as far as global trade is concerned, global economy is concerned. So in geoeconomic, geostrategic significance, this is very important. Geopolitically also, it is very significant. We have seen that a number of countries have got together. We have the concept of the Quad, which also was again revived in 2017. And we have United States, Japan, Australia, and India are members of the Quad. And as far as India is concerned, we have tried to focus on this area, 2, 3 of the very significant initiatives that India has taken. One is what is called the Act East policy. And in that context, basically to get all these countries not only limited to the littoral of the Bay of Bengal, but even beyond, in terms of a much closer network of partner countries. Then we also have the concept of the initiative of what is known as BIMSTEC, the Bay of Bengal Initiative for Multi-Sectoral Technical and Economic Cooperation. And that has been getting increasing energy, that has been getting increasing salience and relevance over the last few years. And we have seen that there are also discussions that have been going on about having a free trade agreement amongst the BIMSTEC countries. So BIMSTEC countries are those that have sort of a footprint as far as the Bay of Bengal is concerned, starting with Sri Lanka, India, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Thailand, and of course subsequently we also added Nepal and Bhutan, because they are landlocked countries and they do not have a direct access to the Bay of Bengal. And lastly, we also have what is known as the Act East strategy of India, and in that also the BBIN strategy, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India and Nepal. So that's a sub-regional format, sub-regional structure in which we try to work together. So the whole idea is that all these countries in the which are in the periphery of the Bay of Bengal, how can they work together? How can they cooperate? How can they collaborate for the economic prosperity as well as promoting peace and security of the region?
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. So, Mr. Sajjan sir has saying that about the economic prosperity and the safe and security, how we can. So, how we can achieve our security and safe zone for Bay of Bengal.
Thank you, Center for Governance Studies for organizing its second edition of Bay of Bengal Conversation. And this is indeed a great pleasure to meet and greet people with ideas, actions, and also new frontiers of understanding and collaboration. I'm hoping that the conference would yield certain benefits out of this process at the level of the people. Having said that, so when we talk about strategic importance of Bay of Bengal, we have to frame it, because this is vast. How do we frame the discussion? That's quite important. To me, the easier way to understand Bay of Bengal is to really look at the Bay Area countries and the countries that are dependent on Bay. So meaning that, and in both cases, there are external actors involved in the whole process. So if you are really looking at the countries that share the Bay of Bengal, obviously, and within India, one has to really look at least 3 regions, eastern region, northeastern region, and southern region's prerogative. Simultaneously, if you are really looking at the countries, then we have to, as Ambassador Sajjanhar mentioned, that we have to look at the landlocked countries like Bhutan, Nepal. The question remains that there is an aspiration amongst people to have a peaceful, prosperous Bay of Bengal. And Bangladesh has a central role to play in it. And given the current shift of the focus from the transatlantic to the Indo-Pacific, we have an opportunity to shape it. But every opportunity also comes up with certain challenges. As an economist, I could see that there are issues of connectivity, there are issues of production network, there are issues of really making sure that it remains peaceful and stable as a precondition for development. So when we look at that, then there are uncertainties in terms of contract enforcement, because there are discussion about the connectivity, but there are issues as regards, if you look at the energy grid or if you really look at the transport, that there are issues with respect to contract enforcement. How do you ensure that every country within the system really abides by the contracts their political masters are coming up with? What are the bottlenecks? Why this is not happening? If we had that previously, why are we not having it right now? Secondly, and most importantly, one has to really understand, and this is quite important, and in the sense that we do not learn from history, meaning that when we say about things, about what we despise, sometimes we really also practice unconsciously. And there are discussions, because we always want to see that there is hardly a kind of a domination. We despise transnational corporations. We want to see the rise of our national capital. But we also tend to forget about the process might lead to marginalization. The process might lead to an unintended negative outcome, because if we are not asserting, if we are asserting that kind of ideas, then there would be issues, right? So when we talk about it, so one has to really look at how do we ensure that there is a mutual respect, mutual benefit out of that process, so that there is a property right stability, meaning peace and stability, and that ensures that economic activities are there. So these are the 2 points one has to recon in order for us to ensure a peaceful, prosperous Bay of Bengal. And the third point that I would really like to ensure, that we Indo-Pacific strategy, as we understand, is a strategy of a process that we want to advance democracy, right? So democracy requires a kind of multi actors. So how do you ensure that in Bay of Bengal there is a multiple actors, so which is inclusive, which ensures that everyone gets their acts, and which ensures a kind of a status quo that allows every actors to be there. So when we borrow the ideal principle of democracy, we need to really have it played here as well. So allowing all actors with their participation in the process, so there is a free, open Indo-Pacific, a rule-based system where everyone participates and has a stability that advances the interest of the countries that either share the bay or the countries that are associated with bay.
Okay, sir. Okay, sir. Since you have mentioned about the two countries like Bhutan and Nepal, so Bangladesh, as a geographically, they are in a very comfortable situation. I mean, comfortable Bangladesh in geologically they stand. But if Bangladesh wants to give Bhutan and Nepal to access to Bay of Bengal, what Bangladesh should do for them? How Bangladesh can accommodate to use our seaports?
As Ambassador Sajjanhar rightly points out, that these are issues that we talk about cooperation, and then we must really, as we say, that walk the talk, meaning we need to ensure when we are talking about, there are two ways in Bay of Bengal. One is a sea route kind of a connectivity, and the other is a land route connectivity. Then obviously we are quite hopeful and we are aspirational to see BBI and many other initiatives to take a strong foot. But unfortunately, as it is, that these words haven't been translated into actions, because there are issues with regard to contract enforcement. So that didn't allow either energy grid or road transportation connectivity to the landlocked countries. On the contrary, Switzerland is a great example of how a landlocked country can benefit out of that process. So what is missing is that equation where you ensure that these countries are really benefiting out of, and I would revoke, say, Mahabharata. In Mahabharata, Yudhishthir, we call Yudhishthir, but or Yudhishthira, is saying about why this war? Why are we doing it? So there are dilemmas. Unfortunately, we do not take lessons out of those processes to see that what we are despising, we are not putting that in practice.
Okay, so as regard to geopolitics, what I understand, I have seen we have our neighboring two big power. It's like India and China, and China is having a very good sea connection with Myanmar. They have built their own deep sea port, and they have their own airport in Rakhine province, and even Myanmar people cannot use those facilities. So China is using that sea facilities from Rakhine to its own country. And on the other hand, China has already purchased the A3 and A5 gas block. They are taking it, they are also taking the gas a country crossing the Myanmar up to the Guangzhou province. So it means that China is economically, we can say that they are in a very good position as regard to their trade and their control. And on the other hand, China is also trying to build a Silk Road and belt over the countries like India, Bangladesh. So out of that Silk Road, do you think that China will get the some control on those countries?
So let's first hear the wisdom of Ambassador Sajjanhar, and then I will respond to your question.
I think she appears to be very keen to engage you in the discussion.
Definitely, I will follow.
Okay. So if it's okay with you, then I will, respond to some of the comments that you have made.
Yes. Okay. Yes. Sure, sir.
Okay. So the first this thing, if I may respond to the question that you had posed to Professor Titumir about Nepal and Bhutan.
Yes.
Because as far as Nepal is concerned, India has been providing it with the connectivity to the Bay of Bengal forever, ever since India became independent, ever since Nepal India relations, and that connectivity has been growing. That connectivity has been increasing, not only in terms of the road connectivity, but also rail connectivity. And also India has put in place a large number of pipelines to provide Nepal with a lot of economic benefits.
Sir, pipeline in what respect?
To provide oil, because Nepal is dependent upon its supply of oil and energy on India. So from India it has been supplied.
So it's like a pipeline from India to Nepal?
Yes,
okay.
yes.
Okay.
The other aspect
It's already started.
Yes, one has already started its extension from whichever place up to another place, Chitwan, that is being done, and the second pipeline is also being now installed. So that connectivity is working pretty well. The second is that earlier India used to provide Nepal with energy about, although it has great potential of manufacturing about more than 84,000 kilowatts of energy, hydroelectric power, but it was never really able to do that. But now with the assistance and support of India and putting in place a large number of hydroelectric power projects, it has been not only India is not supplying, but we have been purchasing power from Nepal. And in the last visit of the Prime Minister Prachanda to India, India also agreed that Nepal would be able to supply 40 to 50 megawatt of electricity to Bangladesh. So that connectivity is also happening. What Professor Titumir also mentioned about, there were two of these important elements. One is in terms of transportation and trade as far as power is concerned, and the second is in terms of motor vehicular traffic. Now, Bhutan, as I'm sure Professor Titumir realizes, has said that it would not like to go in for this for the motor vehicular agreement, heavy vehicles going to Bhutan because of ecological issues, because of climate issues.
So motor vehicle is going to Bhutan from India?
From India and from BBIN, all the four countries. It is under that project, Bangladesh, Bhutan, India, Nepal, what I had mentioned earlier.
But so just can I interrupt you for a while? But they are saying that there is a road connection between the Nepal and Bangladesh, which India is still hesitant to give that road to use for Nepal and Bangladesh.
I'm sure those are normal diplomatic discussions that would be going on. And because, after all, if there is passage between any two countries, I'm not talking specifically, I think it will be useful if we were to discuss in terms of policies rather in terms of specific issues. Because specific issues, there can be sort of, so many different pros and cons. So if we can discuss in terms of policies, it would be much better. So here, I'm sure there would be some maybe security concerns or otherwise. I'm not very certain. I'm not focused on that. But the point that I'm making is that as far as India is concerned, there is increased interest to have much greater integration, both under this BBIN and also under the BIMSTEC rubric and also under the neighborhood first policy that India has launched. The other aspect that was mentioned also by Professor Titumir was in terms of having this, as far as contracts are not honored. I think this is something that, particularly as far as BIMSTEC is concerned, we are having an FTA discussions that are going on. And these are all issues that we really need to discuss amongst all those countries under that rubric. Now, coming to the question that you had posed in terms of China, let me first of all say, that China is not a Bay of Bengal country. It doesn't have either a footprint here. It is not a landlocked country of the nature of Nepal and Bhutan. But of course, it has its own relations with the countries like you mentioned, Myanmar and so on and so forth. But there are so many other countries, which are also have an interest, which also have a presence, which also have a role. For instance, Japan is very interested. It also has a number of collaborative arrangements and agreements with many countries here in Bay of Bengal. The United States is there, Europe is there, ASEAN is there. So I don't know whether it will be useful when we are discussing the geopolitical significance that to discuss individual specific projects and individual specific countries as such, because you might have done some work on that, but definitely, you know, the blocks that you mentioned, etc., you know, others might really not be familiar with that. So maybe it would be useful to discuss all these aspects in terms of ideas and principles and policies that the countries are following, rather than in terms of specific issues and specific cases.
But it connects the Bay of Bengal. This is with Myanmar is a Bay of Bengal country. Myanmar is connect the Bay of Bengal anyway.
So as you are mentioning that now we know that there are good connectivity between the countries at the bilateral level. What is missing in South Asia is the +2, because India, as Ambassador Sajjanhar with clarity and with evidence suggested that the age-old relationship between India and Nepal, India and Bhutan, India and Bangladesh, and obviously with its neighbor India and Myanmar, there are connectivities. What is a great challenge here in here, those countries, they are dependent on Bay of Bengal. There is an interest in diversifying the routes of connectivity, and given the geographical space that requires a connectivity, say in case of Bhutan or Nepal, there is a requirement of a passage through India. So that progress is not happening. Simultaneously, there are discussions with regard to road and rail link connecting the Kolkata with China under BCIM. That has become stalled. There were motor rallies, if you remember correctly, and as a part of Indian diplomacy, there was a lot of discussion about how do they have a connectivity, Bangladesh, China, India, Myanmar. And there were discussions about different routes. And there are also discussions about connectivity at the behest of Economic and Social Council for Asia and Pacific. What hasn't materialized yet, and the people of these countries are looking forward to a connectivity that connects beyond bilateral level. So that's a point one. And as regards your question about China, you see, the way Bangladesh looks at it, and I am sure the India looks at it as well. India has an excellent relationship with Myanmar, so is China. And they have, when there are submarines given to Bangladesh, India also provides submarine to Myanmar. So there are issues that really is guided by every nation's national interest. Okay. So what is really important, and as I advocate for, like a democracy, we must ensure that there is a presence of every countries, so that we together prosper, and like as SDG suggested, no one left behind. And how do we move towards that in the face of certain domination? So,
okay, sir. My last question, both of you, Bangladesh, how Bangladesh can protect its maritime boundary, keeping good relation with India, China, and as well as United States. How we can maintain, and how we can protect our energy.
So you say first, then I'll go.
Okay, I think, you know, as far as the maritime boundary is concerned, as you might know, there was a dispute between India and Bangladesh.
Yeah, that's already solved by the court.
That went to the Permanent Court of Arbitration.
Yes, yes.
And we got the decision of that in 2014. And although India did have the option of taking it back, but India decided to accept the ruling of the International Court. And so that is an issue that has been settled. And we thought that that would be a good not only in terms of a symbolic gesture, but it would be a good message that would go out, because around the same time we had the same issue on the South China Sea, that and the South China Sea, the Permanent Court of Arbitration came up with a ruling which completely rejected the claims of China on the 9-dash line. But China did not accept that particular ruling, resulting in the problems that we are having in South China Sea today. So I think as far as the maritime space of Bangladesh is concerned, in my view, because India is the immediate neighbor and India is steadfast in ensuring that Bangladesh's maritime boundary and security is fully safeguarded and fully protected. So in that context, I don't think there is either a risk or a threat or a danger as far as Bangladesh's maritime security is concerned. And the other two powers that you have mentioned, I think, are extraterritorial powers, and who do not really have much of an influence in terms of impacting on the maritime security of Bangladesh.
So I'll be very brief. You see, there are delimitation in 2012 with the Myanmar and 2014 with the Indian side. What is really important is to how do we transform the vast resources, hydrological carbon, fisheries, deep sea fishing, into the benefit of these countries. So which requires a sense of stability in the region, a sense of ensuring participation by actors. So which means that how do we ensure from the current regional power to a play of superpower, rising power and regional power, to ensure that there is a peaceful, prosperous tapping of the resources in Bay of Bengal. And that's a challenge. Given the history, we can't be hopeful. But given the tides that we are witnessing, we are hopeful that obviously there would be an inclusive Bay of Bengal that benefits everyone.
Okay, sir. My just last question: which technology Bangladesh should take to build its maritime boundary?
You see, Bangladesh has already had our natural sea water territory. We have our exclusive economic zone, and we have our continental shelf that is delimited. What is really important is to transform this in one leg as a peaceful area and with stability. Then the second, which is very important, is to have a growth orientation, where we tend to really, we do not want to be the prison of our history, but we want to show that, look, this is the largest bay in the world, and this must demonstrate to the world that where everyone is participating, collaborating for advancing the interest of the people.
Okay, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you, both of you. And I hope Bangladesh will protect and keeping harmony with the three superpowers like China, United States, and also India and other neighboring country for its welfare, peace, and economic progress. Thank you.